In the latest episode of our podcast, Into the Killing, we examine a strange murder that happened in 1980. For over a decade, the police had no idea that the murder even happened. The only reason the case was solved was because a special agent with California's Department of Justice got a bad feeling about a man he was investigating. You can find Into the Killing on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and anywhere you find your favorite podcasts. But before we start today's video, we want to bring you a word from our sponsor, Homescapes. We want to say a big thanks to the game's developer, Playrix, for sponsoring this video. Playrix is a great company. They're one of the top 3 most successful mobile game developers in the world. Homescapes is an incredibly fun, free-to-play puzzle game. It's part of the Scape series, and it has over 100 million downloads. Before I tell you more about Homescapes, you can get the game by using my QR code or by clicking on the links in the description box. There's so much going on in the game, it's hard to narrow down what I like the most about it. But the puzzles are a ton of fun. They're challenging enough so that they're engaging, but not impossible. New puzzles are being added all the time, so there's always a puzzle to play. Not to mention, they already have a huge catalog of puzzles. It takes most players over a year to get to these new levels. I'm also a sucker for a good story, and Homescapes has some great storylines with intriguing characters. There are over 100 characters, and the dialogue is sharp, witty, and funny. Once you start playing the game, you'll see what I mean. You should check out Homescapes because it's free to play, and you'll be supporting Criminally Listed. You can get the game from the links in the description box and the pinned comment, or simply scan the QR code on the screen. It would mean a lot to our team if you download the game, plus we think you'll have a lot of fun playing it. Homescapes is available in the App Store and Google Play. It's easy to get. Just click on the link or scan the QR code, and I'll see you in the game. Number 3. Rafael Gonzalez. In September 2015, 21-year-old Stephanie Hernandez was living in an apartment in North Little Rock, Arkansas with her boyfriend, 20-year-old Rafael Gonzalez, and Gonzalez's brother and his girlfriend. Hernandez had 2 daughters, one who was 3 years old and the other who was 8 months old. Gonzalez was a construction worker and a painter. He had a criminal record, which included convictions for possession of a controlled substance and endangering a minor. He had been arrested earlier that year and charged with 12 counts of breaking and entering and possession of a firearm. But he had yet to go to trial for those charges. On September 29, 2015, Stephanie was planning on starting a new job. But the day before that, Gonzalez's brother came home to a disturbing scene. 21-year-old Stephanie Hernandez was bleeding from the head, and Gonzalez was crying. Gonzalez claimed he had accidentally shot her in the head. Gonzalez then fled the apartment, and his brother called 911. Stephanie Hernandez was pronounced dead at the crime scene. The murder weapon, a .45 caliber handgun, was found in the apartment. The police looked through Hernandez's phone and social media accounts. Hours earlier on Facebook, Hernandez posted a photo of the murder weapon and some bullets. Another photo was a selfie of Hernandez with Gonzalez sitting behind her, aiming the gun with a laser sight at her phone. A third photo was found, and it was sent to a friend through Snapchat. It was another selfie of Hernandez. This time, Gonzalez was sitting behind her, aiming the gun at her head, and there was a caption that read, "Strap chat?" Rafael Gonzalez was arrested the day after the murder. It's unknown what happened to Gonzalez after he was arrested. A search of the Arkansas inmate database shows that Rafael Gonzalez is not currently incarcerated in the state. For example, both of his parents' cars were parked in the garage. Number 2. Tyler Hadley. In the summer of 2011, 17-year-old Tyler Hadley lived with his parents, 54-year-old Blake and 47-year-old Mary Jo, in St. Lucie, Florida. Mary Jo taught elementary school, and Blake was a watch engineer at St. Lucie's nuclear power plant. Tyler was a quiet kid and wasn't very popular. One week in the middle of July 2011, Tyler told a small group of friends that he was going to throw a house party on July 16th. But his friends didn't believe him. They knew his parents were strict and wouldn't allow him to host a party. As the weekend drew near, Tyler's friends asked him if the party was going to happen, and he said he was working on it. On the afternoon of July 16th, Tyler posted on Facebook that the party might be happening that night. Then, at 8:15 p.m., he posted a message on Facebook that the party was a go. When people got to his home, he directed them into the basement. Several people asked him where his parents were. He told one person they were in Georgia. He told another that they went to Orlando. He even joked with a few friends that he had killed them. At its peak, there were over 60 people at the party. At some point, some of the partygoers noticed that the bedroom door was closed. They thought people inside of it were doing drugs, and they tried to get into the room. But the door was locked. Then they noticed that there was a stain on the carpet. They thought it was an oil-based paint. As the night wore on, Tyler became paranoid that the cops would be called. At about 1 a.m., Tyler had his best friend, Michael Mandel, come outside because he wanted to talk to him privately. When they were outside, Tyler told Michael he had murdered his parents. Michael didn't believe him, so Tyler started pointing out some things. For example, both of his parents' cars were parked in the garage. Tyler then took Michael to the master bedroom, which was locked. Tyler unlocked it. In the room, Michael saw bloody furniture and a large pile of bloody towels. Then Michael saw a human leg coming out from under the pile of towels. Tyler told Michael what had transpired that afternoon. He took his parents' phones and hid them because he wanted to ensure they couldn't call 911. He then took 3 ecstasy pills because he didn't want to kill his parents while sober. Tyler said he went into the garage and he found a claw-tooth hammer. He then went into the house and found his mother sitting at the computer. He said for 5 minutes he stood behind her, watching her. Then he struck her on the head with a hammer and she started screaming. The screams prompted his father to run into the room. He then attacked his father with the hammer. After beating his parents to death, Tyler wrapped towels around their heads and dragged their bodies into the master bedroom. He then tried to clean up the house the best he could. Anything that was too bloody to clean, like a coffee table and books, he put into the master bedroom as well. He then showered and invited people over. After hearing about the murder, Michael left the master bedroom, but he didn't leave the party. He stuck around for another 45 minutes. He posed for several photos, including this selfie with Tyler. He then went home. Around 2 a.m., the police did show up at Tyler's house. That was because a neighbor called to complain about the noise. Tyler told the police he would keep it down, and the officers left. The party continued for another 2.5 hours. Then more officers came. It turned out that when Michael Mandel went home, he called the Crime Stoppers hotline and told them about the double murder. Tyler was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. In February 2014, Tyler Hadley pleaded no contest to 2 counts of first-degree murder. Tyler committed the murders 6 months before his 18th birthday, so he could not be sentenced to death. His lawyer wanted the judge to give him 2 30-year sentences that would run concurrently and then have his case reviewed after 20 years. The judge thought that the murders were brutal and committed in cold blood. so he gave Tyler the maximum, life in prison. 28-year-old Tyler Hadley is currently serving a sentence at the Okeechobee Correctional Institution in Okeechobee, Florida. Michael Mandel was asked why he took the selfie with Tyler. Michael said he took the selfie because he knew it would be the last time he would see his best friend. He also said that the murders ruined his life. He said that people always associate him with the murders and simply think of him as the best friend of the murderer. Number 1. Harold Henthorn. In September 2012, 57-year-old Harold Henthorn and his 50-year-old wife, Toni, were celebrating their 12th wedding anniversary. It was the second marriage for both Harold and Toni. Toni, who was a highly respected eye doctor, was divorced. Harold was a widower. His first wife, Sandra Lynn Henthorn, who went by the name Lynn, had died in May 1995 in a tragic accident. Harold told people for work he ran a fundraising consulting business. He said that he helped raise money for churches and nonprofit organizations. Harold and Toni first met in 1999 on an online dating site, Christian Matchmakers. They were married on September 30th, 2012. In 2005, Toni gave birth to a daughter, Haley. On September 29th, 2012, to celebrate their 12th wedding anniversary, Harold and Toni went hiking in the Rocky Mountain National Park. During the hike, the couple took several photographs. That includes this selfie. At 5:54 p.m., Harold Henthorn called 911. He told them that his wife had fallen off a cliff and she was barely clinging to life. Tragically, by the time help arrived, 50-year-old Toni Henthorn was dead. She had fallen from a cliff that was about 128 feet tall. Her body was removed the following day. Harold talked to Toni's family, and within 48 hours, he had told them several different versions of what happened. Harold first said that Toni was walking behind him, and when he looked around, he realized she was gone. He later said that they were walking, and he looked down at his phone. When he looked back, he noticed that Toni had fallen. Another time, Harold said that Toni was trying to take a photo of him and she backed up and fell off the cliff. Toni's family was deeply suspicious of Harold. They thought it was such an odd trip for the couple to take because Toni had bad knees. They also thought that Harold got the funeral organized very quickly. In 48 hours, he had everything arranged. Harold was adamant that Toni's body needed to be cremated. The medical examiner determined that Toni had died from a fall. He said that she had either slipped or she was pushed. He said that he could not rule out the possibility that her death was a homicide. Over the next year, Toni's family learned some disturbing things about Harold Henthorn. For example, he had been lying about his job. He never ran a consulting business. He had been unemployed. They also learned he had taken out several large insurance policies on Toni. He had also done that with his first wife. When Lynn died, he was paid out nearly $500,000. Toni's family also couldn't ignore the significant similarities between Lynn and Toni's deaths. Toni died a day before their 12th wedding anniversary, and Lynn also died shortly before their 12th wedding anniversary. They both died in bizarre accidents when Harold was the only one around. On May 6, 1995, Harold and 37-year-old Lynn were driving on an isolated road in Douglas County, Colorado. They apparently had a flat tire and they pulled over to fix it. Somehow, Lynn got under the Jeep. She was possibly looking for a lug nut. Then the Jeep fell on her and crushed her. She died the next day. A week later, the investigation was closed. Lynn's death was ruled an accident. In November 2013, just over a year after Tony's death, her family talked to the media and discussed their problems with Harold. The FBI confirmed to the media that they were investigating Harold. Douglas County also said that they had reopened the investigation into Lynn's death. In February 2014, it was revealed that one insurance policy that was taken out on Tony in 2010 was worth $1.5 million. But the insurance company refused to pay out the $1.5 million. A handwriting expert determined that Tony's signature had been forged. The expert said it was one of the worst forgeries they had ever seen. In July 2014, it was made public that Tony's life had been insured for a total of $4.5 million. Tony fell to her death on a Saturday, and her body was removed the next day. On the Monday, which was the first business day after her death, it doesn't indicate who, but someone filed a claim to get the payout on one of the life insurance policies. On November 13, 2014, 2 years after Tony's death, Harold Henthorn was arrested for her murder. When investigators interviewed Harold, he told them several different stories about what happened when Tony died. He said that she fell while looking for an intimate spot away from the crowds. Another time, he said she was looking at some wild turkeys and deer through some binoculars, and then she fell. A third story he had was that he was reading a text message from their babysitter and he didn't see Tony fall. The police checked his phone records and he did get a text message from the babysitter, but that was at 5:54 p.m., around the time he called 911. The police searched Harold's Jeep and they found a map of the park. On the map, there was a pink X marked on it. The X was the exact spot where Tony fell. Harold did not have an explanation for the map. Another major problem was the 911 call. It came in 45 minutes after the fall. Why did Harold wait so long to call for help? Harold said that it took him that long to get down the cliff to Tony's body. But why did he need to get down the cliff before calling for help? A month after Harold was arrested, the ruling manner of death on his first wife was changed from accident to undetermined. It turned out Harold had given several contradictory statements to the investigators. He initially thought that they left their home on that day around 3 p.m., but he later said it was between 5:45 and 6 p.m. He was also unclear if Lynn was crushed before or after they ate dinner. He told some people it happened before dinner, and he told others it happened after they ate. After the car pinned Lynn, several people stopped to help. But Harold refused to let anyone touch her or help lift the car off her. Harold and Lynn supposedly stopped to fix a flat tire. But the tire wasn't flat, it didn't have a hole in it. It was simply low on air, as if someone released air from it. The car had been propped up with a boat jack that was sitting on a cinder block. Harold said that the car jack didn't work. Perhaps what was most damning was what was found on the rear fender. The tire that was removed was the front passenger tire. On the rear fender, on the right side, there was a partial footprint. It looked as if someone had pushed the car off the jack. Despite this evidence, Harold was not charged with Lynn's murder. Harold went to trial for Tony's murder in September 2015. The judge ruled that the jury could hear details about Lynn's death. The map with the X was entered into evidence. The 911 call was played for the jury. The dispatcher who took the call testified, and she said she didn't think that Harold followed the CPR instructions that she gave him. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The jury deliberated for 10.5 hours. Harold Henthorn was found guilty of first-degree murder. Several jury members said that one of the biggest reasons they voted to convict was the 911 call. They said that Harold seemed too casual, and they could tell he was not performing CPR on Tony. In December 2015, Harold was sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole. Since Tony was killed in a national park, Harold was sent to federal prison. 65-year-old Harold Henthorn is currently serving his life sentence at the United States Penitentiary Terre Haute in Terre Haute, Indiana. He has never been charged with the murder of his first wife, Sandra Lynn Henthorn. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Don't forget to check out the latest episode of Into the Killing. You can find it on Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and anywhere you find great podcasts. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.